Well, I'd like to say thank you first for anyone who wants to listen to this. Whoever listens to this story, uh, they will be thinking of answers. They'll be thinking of explanations, which they'll have neither. And then I would like to think, yes, that word think, they're going to think about what's said and think about if this story is ignored. My name is Alan Porter, which is unimportant and always will be. Names mean nothing. It's about the thoughts and actions you have in this life. But to know a little bit more about me, there is something else on a website, www.compass with a Kompas worldcharity.com. You'll see and know a little bit more about me, because I've been anonymous through my life, and there's been a reason for that, a bigger reason, and it's the things that I've been given. I've got two gifts. One that was given to me at a very early age of psychic ability, and also a gift to paint. And both of those gifts have been hidden to a certain extent, and I know the reason for that. Because with all our lives, the most important things happen in your life is to be at a certain point and a certain place in time. And I have to believe that now that I'm releasing a small part, a very small part of what I've been given to see and say. My gift is being psychic, clairvoyant, and a seer. With that, I can talk for days with my experiences. But let me say clearly that all my predictions come true. I've not profited by either of the gifts, because that's not the nature of what I've been given to do. As I've said, my predictions come true. And I'm going to illustrate two stories to give you a feeling. Because the Native American Indians would always say, you've got to go back a few miles in my moccasins if you want to know who I am. But that can be said for all of us. And I've learnt in life not to make a judgment. So, let's get on with a little bit of this story that takes you to a story about Tesco where, make no mistake, I could have saved them billions, made them millions, and at the end of the day I'll say a few things of where they are today. But my story is far bigger and far more important than whether a company loses or doesn't make money. But I'm just illustrating with this talk of what I've got to say. I can clearly say with every bit of confidence, there's no one else on the planet that is in a situation at this moment in time and possess the two gifts that I have. So let's begin. I'm going to go back, I think it was in 2005, and I was watching the television like many more about whether we had the Olympic Games in this country, and I think the competition was with France. We all carry feelings of whether something's right or wrong and everything else, and I think at that time my judgment then was we didn't need the Olympic Games in this country. But anyway, let's proceed. So, the television's on. I see thousands in Trafalgar Square, I think it was, with their flags waving. I'm looking at the television, but I'm seeing something different. This is part of one of my gifts of how I receive messages, not always, but part. I'm now seeing people waving flags, and they're in the Belfast shipyard, and I can quite clearly see the Titanic. I believe it's 1912. Let's think about this now, because when I'm given these sort of things, I'm not qualifying immediately what I'm being shown. So here we are, we're talking a proposal that the Olympic Games is going to be in 2012. So here I am, I'm seeing all these thousands of people in Belfast Shipyard. Then I hear a voice, and this sometimes is how it materializes. A voice as clear as I'm trying to talk to you today. And that voice is saying, this is not a good thing for Britain to be having now in 2005 and making a commitment to finance the Olympic Games. It had been said by Zebco, wrongly, that it was going to cost $2.5 billion. But I'm being told very clearly it's going to cost over £13 billion. And with this message comes another qualification. We can ill afford the amount of money that it will cost because of the circumstances that our great country will be in. Well, with this message, it was so powerful because with these things I have and see, they are very clear, precise, and it stayed with me. But it was powerful. And as a response to that, I've got to say, throughout my life, I've had many such things. Many such things. And they all come true. So what did I do with this? Did I make a note of it? God, if I'd have made a note of everything I've had in life, I would have been doing dictation and writing all my life. It doesn't happen every day. I've got no control as to when it's going to come, but it happens when it happens. And again, I have to believe it happens when it's the right time and place. So let's just go a little bit forward. I remember the date now, March the 28th, 2006. And it was so powerful, but I got other things to talk about. Because at that time, earlier in 2005, I'd been warned, and it's in a book I've written 10 books. I wrote in 2005, there's going to be a financial crash. If I start on that, I've been talking for the next 2 hours, but I've got some powerful stories to tell, I'll tell you. So here we are, 2006, I put a few adverts up. That's always hard when you talk about prophecies. Nobody wants to know about it. Doors shut in your face. Blasphemy is called towards you, and so on and so on. But anyway, I did give a talk in a well-known public house in Leek that goes back 500 or 600 years in its history. And I gave that talk. And there was quite a considerable amount of people who came along to hear me talk. Because when I do talk, no matter what, you can dismiss me. You can walk away and not believe me. But those are fools. And I say that clearly. If you've got an enlightened mind, you will have an open mind. And you will listen and you'll think. Only a fool walks away and doesn't listen. So on this particular night, I said to people, and they listened, and I talked of more than what I'm saying now about that particular day. I said quite clearly, I've had this message, and etc., etc., and it's going to cost $13.5 billion. Now, when you're talking to an audience in 2006 and you're proposing and suggesting something in 2012, what do? They listen courteously, and some will give a feeling that they believe you. But you can't believe anything until it becomes a reality. I've had a lifetime of realities, and I'm now trying to put this story out further. So, right, there's a little bit of my footprint. Let's go to the next story, May make you think a little bit further. This was in, let me think when this occurred. This was now, yes. Right, I'm having to think because with the messages and the visions I've had, I've been taken to 1 or 2 different countries. And in 2011, I'd had a vision, I'd had a message I won't talk about today. That's another big story. Far, far bigger than the one about Tesco and what was given to me then. But here we are. I found myself, it happened in 2010, where through a vision or a repeated message and seen an historical square repeatedly, I found myself going to somewhere I'd never been before, and yes, the historical square was identical to what I'd already seen. But let me jump forward, because the following year, in 2011, I set out on what I'd been told to do, and I went to this place in Slovakia called Banska Bystrica. You've probably never heard of it. I knew nothing of it, but I do follow what I'm told and where I'm to go. So here I am in 2011, beautiful place. I say it's part of heaven. It is to me. And I found myself in a very, very large store. And guess what? It was a Tesco store. It was enormous. I was really surprised that they were as far afield as they were in Slovakia with this enormous store. Anyway, let's get to the bone of this story. I'd been in there a few times, and one night I went in and we were doing a little bit of shopping. I say we because there was 4 of us who set out on July the 23rd. One was to make a film, another was to help with the language, who spoke Slovakian, etc. So I got almost a little crew around me. So what I'm talking about isn't just someone who's just saying something off his own evidence. So here we are, I'm in this big Tesco, and I would buy 1 or 2 things. I pick up a couple of boxes of matches, because in this beautiful place we were staying in a village, just 15 minutes drive away from Banska Bystrica, it had got a log fire and a stove, and I needed matches, etc. When I gone back to the place we stayed at, it was a place called Jakob, I looked at the bill, and I noticed I'd been charged €5 for 2 boxes of matches. I thought, crikey, this is crazy price. And guess what? Do you know what I said? This is what I said to myself. I thought, gosh, if Jack Cohen was alive and heard what I'd just said and seen, he'd be almost explodable with rage. Here we are, a Tesco by name that offers value and quality, etc. Well, principally, it's value, yes, and quality. The two's got to be combined. And here I am, I'm getting sort of agitated, to say the least. Anyway, it was quite powerful, the feeling of annoyance. Now, I've said to you I'm psychic. Now, as I go forward with this, it's hard to believe. I could explain it, but it's going to take longer than this talk. So what happened next? I'm not on my own, so this is not just me that's experiencing this. But anyway, I can see things and everything else. And the table I saw, well, you've got to believe me or not, I'm not lying. What have I got to gain out of this? I saw Jack Cohen. He was apocalyptic. Apocalyptic, I'm saying it twice because that was the feeling. He was banging the table I was at. And he was giving me the feeling and the message. I've got to do something about it. What? Well, when these messages and feelings come through to me, I've learned not to ignore such things. And I said to my colleagues, I thought, well, I've got to sit down tonight. He's going to sit here in this room with me until I do something. So after I'd had a meal, I then sat down to write a message, a letter, to the CEO. Well, who was the CEO at that time? Think about it. We went there in July. I'm trying to place exactly when this was. It might have been, I don't know, I'm guessing now, towards the October or something like that in 2011. It may have approached just a little bit into 2012. I'm not clear on the date. I cannot make notes of everything. I don't even know what's going to be said or done. But let's go through what happened that night, because what I am going to say is reality. So on that night, I write down what I've got to say. Now then, listen to this. Jack Cohen, never met him, but I tell you what, I can read his mind and soul and what he was like. He was a man who was very determined, yes, and I would imagine if you worked with him, you've got to work with him, mind, body and soul, because Tesco was more than a baby to him. If I've read right, I think he started it up just after the First World War or something like that. But this was a man who knew about profit, and he was almost like he was a general who wanted to win. So what did he get me doing? I started to write a plan. He wanted a plan written to save Tesco, because apparently the new CEO, Philip Clark, sorry Philip, what I'm going to say now, you'd lost the plot. You didn't even have the map. You didn't even have the vision. You didn't even have the direction. Because he's Jack telling me what you've got to do. And what you had to do, this is what I wrote to you. I wrote the plan. And I said, or Jack said, it's never I, it's Jack who's coming through me. And he was saying, we are at war. What did he mean? Well, anyone who's in retail or retail analysts knew then they were at war. They were at war with who? Well, in 2011 and before and now, it was Aldi and Lidl. And he said to me, I keep saying to me, no, for Philip, for Tesco, he said, this is a war. He says, I want to tell you something. Think about it. He said, the guns at Singapore, where we could defend Singapore from anyone, or Burma, from anyone, were pointed in one direction. And he said, and this is what I'm writing. This is what went in the message to Tesco. He said, if we all know our history, the Japanese, very cleverly, wisely, cunningly, they came through Burma on bicycles. And here we are, we got the biggest army force that we'd probably gathered in Singapore, and we lost it, didn't we? And so Jack used this as an analogy. He said, we are at war. And this is what he proposed and said. He laid out the battle plan. He said, the stores that we have are economically wrong, not viable, and have been for a long time. The space is far too big. They've got to be cut down. We build no more big stores. We've got to utilize that space. And he's saying, I want every square foot profitable in my stores. And I know when I walk in, they're not. And this is how he's talking. He says, when I look at Aldi and this Lidl, I want to flatten them. This is his conversation. And he says, we will flatten them. He says, we are far, far bigger than them. We can take anybody on. They're good on the prices. They've got economical stores. They don't give you 10, 12, 15 selections. And this is what we'll do. We'll take them on. We will create stores. We're going in a war. And if it takes 3 years, if they've got a block of cheese on at such and such a price, our cheese is going to be cheaper. Because this is a battle. and I don't like losing battles. This is Jack talking. So with this feeling, this message of what's got to be done, I wrote such a letter to Tesco. I even put in the letter, I said, to give privacy. I'm not in this for the money. I'm now talking personally. This was coming from Jack Cohen. I'm deeply patriotic. I look at Tesco and I think that's one of our flagships. That's where I'm coming from with what I'm talking about. And I proposed I could fly over and see the CEO. Well, with my experience in life, you don't get many responses to what I've been doing. As I said, I could talk to you for days. This story is a tip of what I've got to say. So there we go. Let's follow it along then. So we've sent this message, and I'm there in Banska Bystrica. I will say I followed a vision. I finished up there 4 years. I was given something to paint and then code in a painting, which I won't go into now, but it's far bigger than the story I'm telling you. Let's stick to Tesco and the billions and the millions. I did get a reply back from his PR lady, and it was quite good. And they said they appreciate your thoughts. And they put the most ridiculous, oh my God. Jack was getting explosive. They sent a message back saying, if I can remember right, something like, we are doing the right thing, we like customer satisfaction, and he gave a confluted answer that was, let's say, if it was in front of Churchill or Wellington or Marlborough, one or two more, they'd have probably dropped the pants and peed on the damn message. Why? Because there was a battle, a war going on in Jack's mind and in the reality of where Tesco is and is today. That was the reply. So what happened next? Well, I noticed that Philip was proposing to spend, what, $1 billion, $1.5 million on actually making things nice to walk into Tesco. Oh, wow. Don't forget, with the gift I have, sometimes the spirit, and Jack was with me, I'm picking up his vibrations, and I won't express what he was saying. So let's go a little bit forward, a couple of years forward. I think now we've got to, it was getting towards, I'm thinking I got a daughter that was marrying, I don't know, it was in the end of July of 2014, but I got this terrible urge. I had to do what I was being given to do. And Jack was with me again. He wanted me to try again. Just look at this now. 2012 it could have been, or late 2011. He's expressed what he feels. He's seen what he's seen, and he's not a happy man. So here we are, I write another letter. And this time, Philip, I say, Philip, if you don't acknowledge what the first message was, I will make you a promise and a prediction, Philip. You will walk the plank sooner than you think. The message went off. And guess what? I had a reply back, and I offered again. I was flying back for my daughter's wedding, and here I am. I said I will call. It'll be private. I'm not doing it for money. My gift is not for money. But I had a very courteous letter back from his PR lady, and I can read anyone's mind and figuration of how they walk or anything and what someone says. And in that letter, it was quite a lovely letter. And I could tell, without a shadow of a doubt, that his PR lady knew I was talking the truth. So, what happened? Well, he didn't invite me back, and we all know what did happen. he walked the plank. Well, let's go a little bit further. We have someone else coming in by the name of Dave Lewis. I actually then sent the same message and told him to look at the correspondence that had been sent. Look at it carefully. But Dave didn't. And Dave came with his own history. I mean, I only looked last night at some of his history, etc., but unbeknown to me then, that he was known as Drastic Dave. And he came from Unilever. And many people, when they walk into a business, slash, cut bodies, cut everything. Any fool can do that. If you're leading a big company or country, you've got to have that toughness. But what you've got to have, yes, you've got to have a good way with people. I believe Dave had that. He was called Drastic Dave, though, because he got a way of slashing jobs and everything else. But what Dave didn't have, and doesn't have, is a vision. And we look at the world today, and there's not many leaders who've got a vision. There are one or two. I won't go into that now. So let's look at what followed with Tesco. Well, those who follow such things, and I'm not one to follow the shares and companies and everything else, but I do have a pretty good range of what's happening in the world and everything else. As a consequence to that message not being listened to, those investors, I wish I'd have been talking to them. You either believe me or you don't. I'm either talking sincerely or I'm not. They've lost billions. Billions. Now let's think about this. The plan was to go into battle, take Aldi on. What have they done now, 5 years later? They've come up, I think, if I read right, they've set up a few stores up and they're going to take Aldi on. It's a little bit late, isn't it, to win a battle? A little bit late to come into the fight, which they were given in 2012. That was what Jack was talking about, knocking them for 6. And if it took 3 years and they took a hit in taking lesser sales, Tesco was going to keep its reputation and perception that they are the best value. That was what Jack was about. No one can deny that. So here we are. We've witnessed the situation as it is. They're not in a good position now. Don't believe that. I don't want to start saying things about the situation because I don't want to see this company go down. I don't want to see any British company go down. But I won't go and touch that particular thing. I could say a lot more for a lot longer. Yes, we're imploding with politics in this country. And guess what? If I start talking again, I'll be here all day. I was given to write a book called The New Democracy. New Foundations, it's called. That's the book. In 2006. We will see big changes. We will trade with the rest of the world profitably and great. It's going to take a few years, but we can come through. We've got everything we need in this country. What we don't have is a leader and someone with vision. I've spoken this far as I have. You can guess by the tone of my voice and the confidence I have, I could talk a lot longer on far more important subjects. I've written a book called The Message. It won't be printed yet. It's too controversial. I wrote a book in 2005 called My Journey with Joseph. That gives you an idea of who I am and what has happened. I wrote a book in the following year called Divine Intervention at 5 to Midnight. That again. And I wrote several other books, and they're sitting there. And I'm not unperturbed, because I do believe everything is at the right time and place. So I'm going to end this talk now, but I want you to think. You won't have the answers, you won't have the explanations, but this is not a fool, not a crank. This is someone who's got a message, and it's a message to help. Yes, I could walk into most businesses and say whether they're going to make a profit or whether they're going to be there in 3 years or 4 years. I can do it with our country. And it's very, very irritating when you see people who haven't got that vision or that leadership or that conviction to be where we are as a country today. I'd like to think with what I've said, I'll be invited back and I'll have an audience that will want to know more. I'm going to try and send this message to various TV places and newspapers around the world. I have to hope and believe it's the time now to open this door. We cannot sit idly by and watch Rome burn. What am I referring to as Rome? Rome in my bigger picture I'm not talking about just England, I'm talking about the world as it is. So I'm going to stop now, and I hope this recording can be seen by many, and that those that have listened will want to know more, because my powers stretch further than you imagine. And it's not about politics, or it's not all about money. It's about a good many other things. And I think if you go on my website, you'll get a better insight to who I am and what I am. But I want to say thank you if someone's taken the trouble. There'll be a lot of people thinking out there that have got investments, future and everything else. Is this guy real? I'm real. I've been trying to contact, I was given 5 names in 2012, on the 12th day of the 12th month, 2012. And I will not say the names, they're in my book, but I was given unusual words. These 5 people are in a theatre of crisis. One I've tried to contact 13 times. Another 3 times. Another 4 times. World leading figures. 4 of them. One is not in power now, but he holds absolute ultimate power for what he could do. 4 of them are still in power. And I would go tomorrow, if I had a phone call, and sit with each and show them where they could go, where it's right. And if they followed such thoughts, the message I was given, these 5 people can change the world as it is. This is powerful stuff. The story I've told you is but a small piece of a very big jigsaw. Again, I hope this is recorded right and the story's there. So I'm going to say good morning and thank you.